Scott Bass, colbyplus.com to kick off today's show.
Yeah, Colby Plus. Look, you and I have spoken at length about the buttery, super comfortable and warm Colby Plus wetsuits, but they also have these incredible accessory line, which includes the day bag, the wet dry bag.
They look cool too. I want to get the white one. The white one is the coolest looking bag I've seen.
Yeah, white's
Well,
good because it doesn't get super bakey hot in the
there
hot
you go.
sun.
Almost as if by design. Um, we talk about obviously the idea with Colby Plus is a premium ingredient for the specific category. So for wetsuits, the premium ingredient is Yamamoto rubber. For the bags, it's tie zip zippers, which create an entirely watertight bag. So it keeps everything dry. You can actually use them as flotation devices, believe it or not. These are German-made zippers. Um, and then it also keeps your gear, if you put like a wetsuit inside, it keeps it wet inside and doesn't leak out into your car. So they have three different bags, three different sizes. The white one's a 30 liter. Then they also have a 30-liter black roll top bag and then an 80-liter watertight duffel that you could actually use to travel probably for a week. You could pack a week's worth of gear in there easy and use it as a duffel. And then it has straps that you could put on as a backpack too. So
I think
Colby is, yeah,
yeah, the important thing to remember here is if you're going on a surf trip and getting on a boat, we
yeah,
are all bringing our phones with us because they're actually incredible cameras, the phones these days. And these wet dry bags are crucial for that transition period where you're getting off the boat, into the boat, dealing with water, how many times you take your camera and throw it into your Pelican case? Well, now you just got your little phone and you throw it into your wet dry bag and you're safe and good.
yeah, totally. Really high tech, awesome stuff. Colby is spelled Colby plus plus.com, colbyplus.com. So thank you, Mr. Colby. And then also waterwaystravel.com for any and all of your water, your surf trip needs. They are the ultimate surf travel concierge since 1994, sending brands, putting together magazine trips all around the world from JBay to Indonesia to Central America and beyond.
Yeah, Waterways has sent me on probably close to a dozen surf trips. And here's what I would suggest to you. Take a look at the recent, um, what's happening in the Southern Ocean and say to yourself, I like going left. You know what? I like going left. And look at what's happening, swell wise, being directed at places like Indonesia and places like Chicama, like 'tis the season, my friends. And just go into Waterways Travel's website and sort of look around, kind of sneak around, poke around in there and find the spot that makes sense for you. And they will handle everything for you.
Yeah, really great customer service. They got us out of a couple of pinches when we were in El Salvador a couple of months ago. So thank you, waterwaystravel.com.
As we see some movement at the takeoff zone, it's Kelly Slater grabbing rail.
Yeah, a guy. Yeah, a guy, David. It is Spit. It's the Spit podcast. David Lee Scale, Scott Bass with you. We talk all things surf here. It's June 19th. It's Wednesday, Juneteenth, June 19th. And good morning to you, dear citizen. Do you celebrate Juneteenth in any way?
You know what? No, we don't. It's only been on my radar for since Black Lives Matter, basically. I was at the Palm Springs Surf Club right around this time of year, 4 years ago, maybe, with Salema Masekela, and we had a long conversation about it, and just about how it's just kind of being recognized now. I think there was a Netflix special out about it at the time that kind of educated everybody. But my son's got the week off school as a result. I think it's kind of a recognized holiday by certain, I don't know, banks take it off or not, but schools do now. And so we don't celebrate quite yet, but maybe by next year.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I think the state of Texas it's been a state holiday in Texas since 1980. I read this morning.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
What would you do? I mean, what is a proper celebration?
I don't know. It's just funny. I was just thinking, like, is it something you celebrate or is it more something you acknowledge?
Probably acknowledge,
You know,
like Memorial Day. It doesn't feel celebratory.
well, it's in a day of emancipation. I think it speaks to 1865 when Lincoln sent soldiers to Texas to basically enforce the Emancipation Proclamation.
So maybe it is celebratory.
I think it is. I think
Mm.
we celebrate. I think equality is something that we all clap for.
Well, I'm going to take the lead from somebody else on what the appropriate celebration is because I am unawares.
What
But
would Sal say?
I don't know. Hit him up
Dilemma.
or just ask how he celebrates or if he does. I've got a follow-up
Yeah.
from last week's episode that I just thought was worth sharing with listeners. We got a note, you and I both mutually got a note from a listener who knows Jock Sutherland, who said he didn't even know, Jock himself did not know that that article had been published. So there's an article about him in the New Yorker, and he doesn't know. The New Yorker. Does it just mean that nobody on the North Shore reads? Maybe the New Yorker doesn't get delivered to the North Shore. So it's just isolated and he's living out, just like there's remote tribes that don't know the internet exists yet. But I just thought that was so charming.
Yeah, that's a perfect word. It's charming because you know what? I sense that Jock probably is like you and me, and he's got his eyes focused on probably on Surfline or on the swell forecast and on what's happening today. And those interviews he did with Will Finnegan probably, a long time ago. And, he's just,
Will
to me,
showed
he
up
just
for a
strikes
week
me as a
and
guy that's like, what's the tide doing? Not, like
Yeah.
what's happening with the New Yorker.
Will showed up. Bill Finnegan showed up for a week, went away. That was 4 months ago. Jock
Yeah.
never thought a bit again about it.
Exactly.
I just figured he'd run into somebody at Foodland who'd be like, "Hey, man, congrats! I saw that article." But I
Yeah.
literally don't think it gets delivered to the North Shore.
No.
You were talking about the article about him surfing pipe on LSD at midnight, and apparently it's in this book right here. The article, like you said, was originally published in the Surfer's Journal,
Yeah.
but Steve Pezman last year published a book, 50 Years of Surf Writings. It's called Turn and Go. And that
I need to get
exact
that.
article is
I
in
need to
this.
buy that book and I need to buy the new one from Hewlett.
That's right
And I
there
will
on my
do that.
shelf too.
I'm going to do
So,
that. Yeah.
so just if anybody wants to, access that article that you're talking about, you could find it right here.
I'm literally going on the Surfer's Journal right now to buy those two books.
You're gonna, people would be amazed to know the things that you have done while we were recording episodes over the course of 10 years. I remember you clipping your fingernails at one point, booking airfare probably at another point, certainly checking the waves, certainly watching surf contests. You introduced a segment a couple months ago called Who Said It or Who
Let's
Said
do
That?
that. Let's do that. Are you ready for this?
I've got one for you today as well.
Oh, okay. Well, why don't you go first? Sounds like you're prepared. I'm prepared, but why don't you go
No,
first?
go for it.
Okay.
Whatever you want.
Who said that? It's a sort of a running, I guess it's a game show. It's a fun trivia thing that David and I are doing here.
We need
So
theme music.
I'm going to read out a quote from a famous surfer, and you are going to try to tell me who said that. Okay. So here's the quote. And I quote, famous surfer. I agree with what Rabbit Bartholomew said recently. I don't think enough people are exploring the limits of their character, trying to find out what they're all about. You don't have to go to the NSSA, clean cut, Ugg boots and sweats route. And you also don't have to go to the hardcore smoking cigs rebel route either. I think everybody has to be more themselves. That's it. Just be yourself. Be honest. David, who said that? A, was it Richie Collins? B, was it Christian Fletcher? Or C, was it Brad Gerlach?
I'm going to go Gurr.
You're correct, sir. Brad Gerlach said that in 1987 in an interview with Surfer Magazine's Matt Warshaw. Just be yourself. Everybody needs to be yourself.
Richie Collins was a great one to include because that really did throw me off. I thought that very well could have been him. Christian Fletcher is himself, but he's not that articulate to string together that coherent, of a thought so that was much more Gurr for sure.
Yeah, Brad Gerlach. It's actually a really funny interview that they did. There were so many quotes I could have pulled. There's a whole string of discussion about who Brad's, at the time, 1987, the perfect girl for Brad. He goes on this. It's pretty fun. So
I'd love to hear what the picture he painted of the perfect girl compared to who ended up being the perfect girl for him. Because I could tell you what the perfect girl or like his current wife is the perfect girl for him. I could tell you about her, but I'm curious what he said back in those days.
Well, I can tell you that it was basically he's not into blondes.
Accurate.
He's into brunettes.
Yep.
They have to be. He has this funny quote about, "I'm not into big titted blondes," and I'm going to butcher his quote, but they have to be kind of sporty. They have to. He said at some point he kind of said, if I go climbing, like rock climbing with them, I have to turn to them and go, here, hold this and bring it up behind me as we climb up. And they have to be okay with it.
Check, check, and check. I think it all worked out.
Yeah. I'm kind of butchering it, but my point is you can find this and a bunch of other really important encyclopedia type stuff and history stuff on Matt Warshaw's EOS.surf, encyclopedia of surfing.surf, where they're just continuing to update and it's just a real treasure trove of information and history. So that's where I find most of my quotes.
Yeah.
For this segment.
I was talking about the Surfers Journal archiving stuff on their website. Matt does a phenomenal job because in addition to the listings of individuals on EOS.surf, he also has articles from the past that he has archived. So it's a treasure trove. And it is, in fact, where I pulled my quote for you for our game. Who said that?
Yes.
Before I get into that, I just want to recognize Gerlach's in Southern California right now. They did a wave key training session yesterday, Northside Huntington. So if you do want to work with Brad one-on-one, now's the time. He lives in Australia, but he's here for a month or so more. So you have direct access to him if you did want to link up. Wavekey.com, I think, is where you would do that. But my quote is pulled specifically for the news story this week, which is the JBay Invitational. The JBay Invitational is currently running while we were recording this podcast right now, Scott. Coco Ho just posted the largest score of the event thus far. I think it was an 893, riding one of her own designs, her Exo Coco boards. The waves are not great, but they are, they're head high and it's JBay, so it's pretty awesome. I should say they are great. They're not great for JBay, but they are great waves. So are you familiar with this JBay Invitational event that's running?
I'm not really. I mean, there's been a little bit of sort of, stuff on the internet, social media, Instagram and so forth, but no, I guess the answer is I'm not super familiar here.
It's a bummer that we aren't better acquainted with this event. It's a new event. Obviously, the JBay Pro is off tour. It's off the tour schedule this year, but the WSL is running an invitational there. The crazy thing about this is that they're not live streaming the event. So they invited male surfers and female surfers. They have a male division and a female division, and they're running a twin fin event and a thruster event. And the same surfers, all the male surfers surf in the twin fin event and the thruster event, then all the female surfers surf in the twin and the thruster event. And then there's a winner of each division and then an overall winner at the end of it. But just to give you an idea of the surfers that are competing, the men are Adriana De Souza, Matt Wilkinson, Josh Kerr, Mark Ocalupo, Sean Holmes, Michael February, Federico Marias, and then a bunch of names that you wouldn't recognize, but local South African surfers. Mm-hmm. So they got a cool lineup of surfers, kind of diverse lineup of surfers as well, especially the fact that Aki is there. Stephanie Gilmore, Coco Ho, Sage Erickson, Sierra Kerr, Sally Fitzgibbons, and Sarah Baum on the women's side. So pretty epic lineup, but pretty disappointing that we can't see it streamed live.
Yeah, that's weird. Well, it sounds cool, but yeah, why? I wonder why we can't. Thought you were watching it right now. I thought when you said it's running right now, I anticipated that you had the screen up somewhere and you were watching it, but
I know it's setting up a big reveal that they aren't streaming it, unfortunately, but we are going to see Instagram clips. So the reason I knew that Coco got that score is because they posted it on their Instagram account, which is like JBAY Invitational, I think is the Instagram account. I'm sure they might recycle them on WSL's feed as well. But I thought it would be a good time to pull a JBay quote from the EOS. So, quote, I will give you 4 options at the end, multiple choice.
That's not
Quote,
fair.
wave is so long and everything looks so wide open ahead of you, and the variables seem endless. It just overwhelms a lot of people. The choices can feel overwhelming. Even to really good surfers, Jeffries is an easy wave to surf, but it is difficult. It's a difficult wave to surf well. There's a correct line at Jeffries, and when you're watching, it seems pretty easy to pick that line out. It is not. Only the really tuned in surfers can find it and stay on it. End quote. Is this Sean Thompson, Gavin Rudolph, Kelly Slater, or Terry Fitzgerald?
Huh. Hmm. Sorry for the dead space. I'm conflicted here. I'm gonna say that it's Terry Fitzgerald.
Incorrect.
Oh,
This one was too easy.
oh, okay. Go ahead. Tell
Sean
me.
Thompson.
Oh, all right.
I made it as simple as possible because I knew you would never take the simple bait.
Yeah. Well, this is a fun game. We've created a fun game here.
You know what I like about this game? I want to share history lessons with people. You know what I mean? Like the history lessons that you and I got out of the magazines when we were growing up are few and far between now in the surf media space. And so this is an opportunity to retell some of those stories.
I agree. And it's funny because when I was pulling my quote from Brad's interview with Warshaw, there were some funny ones I could have pulled, but I wanted to get something that I thought had a little bit more historic context, so anyway, yeah, let's try to do that.
Well, so obviously Sean Thompson is the obvious association with JBay.
Yeah.
And then the article, that quote was pulled from an article that or a conversation that Matt had with Sean in 2014. I don't think it was ever published anywhere, but it was a phone call and he published the transcripts on the eos.surf. So it's a 10-year-old conversation. But in it, Matt also asked Sean about the very first time that he surfed JBay. And Sean said, quote, I rode Jeffries for the first time back in 1968. And I went back pretty regularly from then on. In 1975, when I was 19, I drove down there with my dad. I brought 2 boards, a 6'8" and a 7-footer, the same boards I took to Hawaii at the end of the year and rode it backdoor and off the wall, the free ride boards. Anyway, I was riding my 6'8" and it seemed right. It seemed like the right choice. The waves were pumping and the board was going pretty good. Fitz was there too, and Bunker Spreckles and Art Brewer. This must have been right off of the Gunston contest. So yeah, Fitzy and I were kind of going off out there. And I noticed that what Fitzy was riding, I think it was a 7.7, much longer than what I was on. From watching him, I decided to change over to my 7-footer. And right away, the board just felt perfect. Perfect. It was a revelation. And that's sort of what got me talking about. I'm sorry. And that's sort of what I've been talking about this whole time. Going up a few inches in size made all the difference. It smoothed out my line. The turns, the arcs, everything started fitting into the wave better. The projection was better. The speed, tube riding got much easier. Jeffries isn't a big cylinder. It's a high pocket tube, and you need to keep your line up there. And a lot of the time you're pushing through these bits and pieces that are falling down around you. The longer board gave me the added momentum in the tube. So, I mean, it's a better choice at every level.
I love that. Yeah, I'm a big fan of that myself. You know what I mean? Yes. A little bit more bored, folks. You'll be
Yeah.
surprised, especially at a wave where you're not really doing turns. I mean, back then he was on a single fin, you know, like, I mean, they're doing turns, but they're not doing,
Yeah.
John Florence type stuff.
They're
And
not redirecting.
right. And yeah, I don't think you really want to do too much redirecting. And again, that's just me, but I'm sure there's guys out there that are better than me that are going to be all about the huge hooking S carve, but I'm all about a little bit more line in the rail and just driving and getting from point A to point B,
Look,
which is
I mean that follow-up quote that I just read relates directly back to the original quote that I read, which is it looks like a perfect wave, but it's very difficult to surf because there's a ton of energy at certain parts of the wave and not as much energy at other parts of the wave. And there's more vertical parts of the wave and very slopey, horizontal parts of the wave. And being able to connect all of those energies together into one flowing ride is incredibly challenging. And so the larger board, and I would argue the single fin as well, so that you're not really redirecting and then missing a section, is all key.
yeah, it's funny. It makes me think of that footage of Tom Curran when that's like the first wave he's ever ridden at JBay or something, and he just paddles out and just absolutely destroys it with just the most beautiful line that he's picked. And yeah, what a great wave. I've never surfed there. I'll probably never surf there. And it's unfortunate. It's kind of a bucket list wave for regular foots, I think.
It was my very first bucket list wave. When I first discovered surfing, that was the very first wave that I was like, okay, one day I'm going there.
I got an interesting Gavin Rudolph anecdote. Well, it's a question for you. What is what was Gavin Rudolph's sort of, I don't want to say claim to fame, but shining moment?
Winning a sunset event at the age of like 17 or 16
Yeah, that's right.
when he was like 1968, maybe 69,
It
something
was,
like that.
it was the 71 Smirnoff. He was 18 years old, visiting Hawaii for the first time, and he was surfing against Jeff Hackman, Billy Hamilton, Ben Ipa, and Eddie Aikau. I mean, that's an all-star lineup of sunset surfers who have cut their, they know the spot like the back of their hand if you can do that. It was only Gavin Rudolph's second day surfing sunset. And
I think it was the first time he had ridden that board too. Like
and
somebody sent me a year ago the news article that was written at that time about that event, and I want to say that there was he had maybe he wrote it the day before, but he was a brand new board. The day before was I'm mixing up the details, but it was a brand new board for sure.
yeah, so that's kind of a cool story, to paddle out against those guys. You're 18 years old in Hawaii for the first time, and they're like, "Here, go out at 12-foot sunset. Good luck," and he wins. That's pretty amazing.
And and the waves were legit too. It wasn't
Yeah,
like, yeah.
it was 12
And
feet.
nobody knew who he was. They call his name on the beach and everybody's like, what the heck? Who is this guy?
How did he even get it? How did he get into this thing?
I know he's still talking about that to this day for sure.
Anyway,
Um,
good stuff.
well, one other thing as we're discussing surf contests at iconic waves, the Cloudbreak event is official for finals
Yeah,
day in 2025. I think maybe we discussed this as a rumor that Stab Magazine had dropped in previous weeks, but
yeah.
the WSL released a press release confirming that this is in fact where finals day is going to be held in 2025.
Yeah, I've seen there's a lot of and we expressed this too. There's a lot of hope and excitement around this event for 2025. And I noticed that on some of the stab comments, there was sort of some hand wringing, some, like stoke that we will get to see Gabe and John Florence in the finals at Pumping Cloudbreak. And it got me thinking, a lot of things have to happen for that thing that I think would be great for all of us to see, Gabe and John in Pumping Cloudbreak. First of all, they both have to be on tour in 2025, right? Okay, there's one thing. They both have to remain injury free, which is a concern. And the swell has to arrive in September, which is sort of late season. There'll be waves probably then, but it's late season. And of course, the wind has to be right. So I thought to myself, why do we need all of these things to line up for this thing that we all want to see, which is Gabe and John and pumping Cloudbreak? So it's time to sort of reignite something you and I have been speaking about for years, you specifically, this idea of like a UFC type of event. It's time for a disruption, David. It's time for, and a drum roll, please, the conflict at Cloudbreak. John Florence versus Gabe Medina, a made for live streaming broadcast in pumping Cloudbreak, brought to you by whomever, Meta, Microsoft, Red Bull, Lexus, you name it. 3 out of 5, best of 3 out of 5, 45-minute heats and pumping Cloudbreak with John, and Gabe. I mean, the entire surfing world would tune into this. It would, it's
I'm
kind of a no-brainer
salivating.
from a marketing standpoint.
Yeah.
And Stab, the writer, I forget, it might have been, I forget who wrote it, and I apologize, but he brought up a great point, which is, Cloudbreak's an interesting place from a time point standpoint. In other words, we can all watch it. Like if you're in Europe, you can watch it. If you're in Australia, you can watch it. If you're here in North America, you can watch it. Like it's not this crazy time zone. Like we're all like, I'm either watching it at 7 in the morning, and in Europe, you're watching at 5 at night. Like it's, it's not on at like 3 in the morning, So from that standpoint too, you're going to get your money's worth if you're one of the sponsors, if you're the sponsor. So the conflict at Cloudbreak, made for streaming TV.
Salivating already. Obviously, we've advocated for this for a long time, but when you just parsed it down and it just delivered it in that way, 3 heats, those 2 guys, 45-minute heats, that's it. That's all we want. Because initially I was thinking, okay, but let's also throw, we need 5 guys. Let's throw Italo, let's throw Kelly. No, screw that. Gabe at this venue. I want Gabe and I want John, and I don't want 1 hour heat. I want 3 45-minute heats throughout the course of a day as the conditions change to really distill. Because with 1 hour, you might say there's still variability and opportunity for somebody to have luck on their side or whatever. But 3 heats, 45 minutes throughout the course of the day in changing condition, changing tides will really distill who is the superior surfer on that day.
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it too, because
that's what we want
out there, the winds and the tide, all of a sudden everything comes together, and there's that 3-hour, 2-hour moment, that John Roseman salivates about. He knows it exactly. He jumps in his ski and jams out there, and he just sits on the ledge. And again, so many things have to happen for, in the WCT format for us to get this. It's like, screw all of that. Let's just do this. Like, why aren't we just doing this?
Really, so think about it further from a business standpoint. All of the expense from moving this massive tour with all these surfers from place to place, all that goes away. And what you get out of the thing that you and I just said is more viewership, more dollars, more eyeballs with this thing where the expenses are a fraction of the other thing. So why the hell would you ever elect to do the other thing?
Yes. And there's space and time and opportunity in the other thing as well. We're just saying at this point, such low-hanging fruit. Just grab it and chew on it.
The only reason they're doing the other thing is out of it, just by rote.
Nostalgia.
It's out of just, we've always done it this way.
Yeah.
But the reason they always did it that way was because there wasn't modern convenience and technology that now allows us to do a new thing. So they haven't reinvented and updated to accommodate for all the, fixes that we can actually implement nowadays. So yeah, that is no brainer. We know exactly who the people are at a given spot, and who the heavyweights are, let's say, that are worth vying for the title belt at any given spot. And so let's just implement that heavyweight tour.
And I anticipate what would happen is, first of all, you and I can speak for you and say, we're kind of blown away that this hasn't happened already, because we've been talking about this for like 5 years or something. Like, I'm surprised at this point that Red Bull or somebody didn't come in and go, yes, we're doing that thing. And, it's not like it's rocket science. It's not like you and I sat down at a chalkboard and tried to fucking figure out, some sort of crazy math equation. We're like, put the two best guys in the best waves. Let's go. So we're sort of surprised here that it hasn't already happened. And I sense that what could happen is somebody goes, okay, well, we can't use WSL competitors because the WSL won't let them. They won't sanction the event, and they will, fine those guys or kick them off the tour or do whatever they have to do to keep them away from it. And so you would get a couple of guys like, I don't, for lack of, whoever, like a couple of whoever, you get two guys and you give them a big chunk of change. And then you get the Gabes and the Johns going, wait a minute, all the eyeballs are on these two guys. Yeah. Why aren't all the eyeballs on Gabe and John? And those two guys at that point go, we're out. We're going to get $1 million. There's $5 million on the line here. You know what I mean? Like, it'll take a little bit of tweaking before the big hitters go, okay, we see the writing on the wall.
There's less tweaking now than that would be needed than ever, though, because, the WSL has kind of shot themselves in the foot in a lot of ways. And so I think John's already got one foot out the door, or he's just looking for the opportunity that would allow him to put the other foot out the door. Gabriel Medina, I think, has a lot more reason to stay on tour. Like, that's what his life is all about, and that's what it's always been about. But if there was a Mark Zuckerberg, or, I'm trying to think of surf fans, billionaire surf fans.
I thought of him too.
Zuckerberg, Nick Woodman, Adam Newman, who just said, look, $1 million prize, screw the world tour. $1 million, come over here at Cloudbreak and surf for one day, and I'll give you $1 million, whoever wins. And you know what? Gabe and John, you're the two guys that it's a 50-50 shot. You each got a chance at this $1 million. I think they would walk away at this point. So the other thing that should be stated is Red Bull has done versions of this with their Cape Fear event and various versions of that. But the trap that they fell into was by inviting 20 people. Like, it's super cool to do the specialty event in pumping surf, but the 20 people isn't as thrilling as what you and I are talking about. Like, forget about the other 18. We know the two who are vying for the title. And rather than giving them one heat or an elimination format or whatever, no, it's just them, and they get to go toe to toe over and over and over and over again on set waves.
Yeah. And I often think, okay, well, why don't they do this in tennis? Like, why don't they just have Nadal versus Djokovic and forget everybody else? And the reason that it's good in tennis that they have 60 guys and they go through qualifying and round 1 and round 2 and round 3 and quarterfinals and semifinals and then the finals is because what they don't deal with is, we have to do this in one day, and we're hoping to get that day in a 2-week window when it's 6 to 8 feet and good conditions. And that's why we have to eliminate the other 60 guys. And we just want to bring the two best, who we all kind of know are the two best. It's Nadal and Djokovic, or whoever, it's Gabe and John Florence. And that's why this makes more sense for surfing than any other sport.
Yep. Completely agree. Well done. Get on it. Red Bull, WSL, whoever. Mark Zuckerberg. Rocketmoney.com/surf. Just this week, my wife figured out she was paying a subscription for Showtime, but then also paying for Paramount Plus, which includes Showtime for free. That's precisely what Rocket Money was designed for. A modern tool that meticulously tracks the details that we easily get distracted from. It's a finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your monthly spending, and helps you lower your bills. It gives you freedom by helping you see your subscriptions in a simple dashboard and alerts you about hidden fees or increases. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year, with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. Stop wasting money on things that you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/surf. Calm the clutter in your head. Simplify the tedium of your financial life and find freedom through rocketmoney.com/surf.
Shane Dorian is our new USA surf team coach.
Can't imagine a better fit.
It's great news. And there's I've got so much Olympic psych and stoke, not just for surfing, but for all of the other sports. But Surfer Magazine did an interview with Shane. I don't know if you read this, but there's a couple of things that stick out about it. First and foremost, let's just say congratulations to Shane. We are stoked. You are right, David. Perfect fit here, right?
Speaking of fit, that dude is as fit as any human being I've ever seen at his age. He is, I mean, he is dialed and he's optimized his everything. Whatever he's doing is what we should be doing. So I'm a huge Shane Dorian fan. His surfing is still through the roof. He seems like an incredible father. He is a super savvy investor, businessman. Shane's got all things firing right now. And so he's, in terms of being a coach, he's coached Italo. He coached Italo the year that Italo won his world title. He's got plenty of experience in big barreling waves. He's got plenty of competitive experience. So he is the best fit for this job. So congrats. Great call.
Yeah, and the article sort of touched on that too, or even Shane did that. He right now he's not necessarily one of the coaches for one of the guys. Like, so he's not gonna have there won't be a sense of favoritism, so to speak. So yeah, good call. But let me touch on some things that I found interesting. And these are quotes from Shane Dorian that I'm kind of glomming together. But one of the things that Shane pointed out, which I think is really interesting, is that due to its location in Tahiti versus Paris, it's one of the only Olympic sports that's happening when none of the other sports are happening. So it's really good for TV opportunities. From a competition standpoint, the town of Chopu is basically going to be an Olympic village. The last few miles at the end of the road are going to be on lockdown. You won't be able to go to Chopu to watch this event if you're on Tahiti. It's completely locked down. And they also have official practice windows 6 days before the Olympics start. So for 6 days, it's just Olympians. You won't be able to even get into the competition site. You have to have the right credentials. So it's kind of cool because, as Shane mentions, you can be like a 14-year-old girl from China that's in the Olympics. That's like, oh shit, I get to surf Chopu. This is the only time I've ever really been able to surf Chopu. Can you imagine being, sort of a, let's just say C-tier Olympic surfer, and you're like, hey, guess what? You get 3 hours at Chopu with 4 other people.
Yeah.
How intense that would be. Like, oh my God.
It's not enough. First of all, it's not enough time to figure it out. Britt Merrick told me that he actually shaped a board for the 14-year-old Chinese girl female surfer who's included. And he's like, he had real legitimate concerns about her safety.
Yeah.
I mean, it is an expert wave. And even you see CT surfers, you see former world champs, current world champs, Felipe Toledo, not knowing how to, solve the riddle of Chopu. And so to put any lower tier surfer than that out there is almost irresponsible. So yeah, it's great that they have that window of training. It's not enough time.
Yeah. I mean, there's two things really. There's the technical aspects of riding that wave, which are intense. The real hurdle is between your ears, because before any of the technical stuff can even be attempted, you've got to put yourself in the framework of, I'm going no matter what. Like, and I'm going to be paddling into a wave which goes against all of the senses that I've learned about in my 20 years of surfing, or however many years
your human survival instinct that tells you not to go.
Thank you. That's exactly right. And so it's going to be fascinating. I mean, I think those practice sessions are going to be really fascinating. You know what I mean? To watch these people that have never surfed Chopu, and they're just like, here you go.
To your point, Felipe Toledo has all of the technical ability in the world to actually technically surf that wave. Like there's no question about his, fast twitch muscle reflex. He knows how to get to his feet on a surfboard in super critical situations. So he could technically get a 10-point ride out there just by the fundamentals of this surfing. But it's more about confronting your human instinct of survival.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And I would urge you to go check out Dorian's interview, because he's, among all the other things you mentioned about Shane, as a great coach. As a great coach, he's an incredibly good communicator too. And
Smart.
there's something I think he drinks like deer blood smoothies or something. He's got some secret going on there. I'm not sure what they are, but
Yeah,
tip of the
he's
cap to Shane Dorian, who, by the way, is my Duke Kahanamoku for this episode.
great call.
Yeah.
Great call. And Shane, I don't know if I told you this. I don't know, like 6 months ago, I DM'd him and I'm like, hey, dude, I would love to get you on the podcast. I forget what was happening in the news at that time, but I was like, I'd love to get you on the podcast. And he replied and he was like, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to, I think with Brazil with his son or something. When I get back, let's figure it out. So then, it was the stem cell thing. It was what I wanted to talk to him about because he went down to Baja and got that stem cell injection. Then he was going to Brazil. So then he came back for another round of stem cells, and I hit him up again. And he goes, yeah, you know what? I've got another podcast that I'm doing this week, and I don't want to overlap the timing of those two releases. So hit me up again at whatever down the road. So I'm like, okay, no sweat. 3 days later, Joe Rogan was the other podcast that he was doing. So he just referred to it as, I'm doing another podcast. And then I'm scrolling Instagram and Joe Rogan pops up and he's like, hey, I got Shane Dorian on this week. And I'm like, that's the podcast.
Yeah. That's a good one to go on.
Yeah. Way to be humble about it, Shane.
Yeah. That's totally in his character too. That's great.
I know, right? Like playing it low key.
Yeah.
By the way, one thing I will say, in addition, kind of in concert with this conversation about Shane living his best life in his 50s, Joel Tudor just signed with Birdwell, the board short brand.
Yeah.
And in addition to Vans, he's still on Vans. But I was like, good on Shane. And then I pull up Stab Magazine for whatever, and there's an ad running on the side that is it's a dragon ad. Rob Machado's on it. Scrolling Instagram, I get ads from Viore with Rob Machado on Viore. And I'm just thinking, this is awesome that 50-year-old surfers are still being paid to do what they do really well. I mean, they're still doing it at the highest level, And then I'm getting
it's interesting what, like, kind of go behind that. What's behind all of that? What are your thoughts on why is it that brands are interested in older surfers?
Well, it is something that we've talked about in the past, which is the average age of a surfer nowadays is 45 years old. It's not really a youth sport like it was when I was growing up. And so I think the brands are recognizing that that's who the demographic is. That's also who has the disposable income. But I think there's also,
I think there's one other thing that you're
okay. What's the other thing?
I think you're about to get to it. I think there's one more important thing, the overarching important thing.
Well, I don't know if it's the same thing. I was just thinking that there is stability and legacy that is way more valuable than trying to pick who is going to be the next world champ.
Yeah.
And so it's
you kind of nailed it. I think that's where, as a marketing director, you're like, this guy brings our brand authenticity. We don't have to roll the dice and hope that, David Eggers is going to pull it off for us. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's been doing it he's a pipe master. You know what I mean? Like, so I think that's a big part of it, is the authenticity that you automatically get. We already know this guy's a good guy. We already know that you know what I mean? Like, all the things that add up. Like, we're not going to get too much drama here.
Yeah, exactly. You know what you're getting with Joel Tudor for sure. You're getting something very different from Joel than you're getting from Shane, but you know what you're getting. And he's going to show up every day in and out because he has been for 40 years, And Rob Machado, same exact thing. It's like, why would you not just it's a sure thing? And so,
by the way, have you seen him surf lately? It's incredible. It's just kind of like Kelly. Like, I feel like they're doing their best surfing at
Great point.
age 50, whatever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then in addition to me being happy to see money being spent on adult grown male surfers, seeing some of this Olympic media coming out where Caroline Marks isn't on a surf post. She is on a post with a bunch of other disciplined athletes. She's wearing Ralph Lauren, sponsored by Ralph Lauren for this event. Griffin Colapinto, he had a post from the Olympics Instagram account, and he's talking about a charity he works with to write Love on Her Arms, charity about bringing awareness to mental health. Seeing these things, and I'm like, wow, there's more money in surfing now than I think there ever has been. Like, it went away, the money went away, the big brands went away, and so the money went away for a period of time. But in this Phoenix era of rising from the ashes, there's actually more money in it, I think, than there ever was, even with the big brands. When you look at the kind of money that the Jamie O'Briens and the Mason Hoes and the Nathan Florences are making from their YouTube channel alone, the content that or the money that YouTube pays them for their channel for creating content, and then the sponsors that they have from those things, I would venture a guess that they're making more than, anybody other than Dane Reynolds and John Florence when they were getting $4 million a year.
Well, guess what else is going to be interesting? And I think another reason why the Olympics are going to be sort of fascinating, if and only if we get the Olympics surfing is televised to the masses, and we get this incredible day at Chopu, even if it's not the finals day, that's one of the other days, but it's just, solid, beautiful blue Chopu. And the entire world sees, I don't know, Vahini Fierro standing in a massive pit. They're going to fully cash in. Like the surfer that wins the gold medal that has that picture of them just standing in an insane Chopu pit that the entire world sees, every marketing geek in the world is going to want that associated with their brand. Like that's, but well, here's what's interesting. That's only going to occur if there's a swell. Once again, Mother Nature has the last laugh here. If it's just kind of crappy 4-foot Chopu and sort of got some creepy wind on it, and it's just not what you and I expect, and it doesn't have that boom, that look, that
Picturesque,
sexy, incredible, dramatic man versus nature, just, if it doesn't have that, then a gold medal's cool, but it's just not going to have that same punch that a marketing director is going to want.
No question about it. I think what adds to what you're saying is that 80% of the field that's qualified for that event is going to be going over the falls and being detonated on a duck dive. And so when you're broadcasting that and you're seeing people actually get maimed and injured, the one who actually navigates the barrel and gets the photo that you're talking about, the Vahini Fierro, it then amplifies how much more difficult. These are Olympic athletes who are just getting detonated, but then 20% of them kind of figured it out, and one of them really got the gold and figured it out. That elevates them to a heroic status. And beyond that, the imagery that's generated is not only unlike any other imagery generated from any other Olympic event, it's better than, it is far superior than anything that you can shoot off of a curling event or even a running a race event. Like the imagery is just that much more spectacular.
Yeah. And it's imagery that you and I are used to, and we've all seen it. Everyone listening to this podcast has seen it, but the masses haven't really, I don't think the masses have really seen what's about to go down if in fact the swell provides.
Yeah. I mean, there is the kind of phrasing that we've used over and over the years is like men riding water mountains. Men riding mountains is just compelling. It's compelling viewing no matter who you are. It's very difficult for the broad audience to understand the nuance between two different top turns at lowers. So that's almost a non-starter for the massive viewing public. But a man riding a water mountain or a woman riding a water mountain is compelling viewing no matter what. There's some human, understanding that is just goes against nature. The Chopu thing is almost, there's like a freight train element to it.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a difference between Nazare, like what everyone in Europe has seen, and what they're about to see when the entire ocean unfolds on the reef. And it's more of a freight train.
It's the bullet train in Japan that blows past you and everybody almost gets blown over by the wind and somebody's jumping onto the train at full speed. Like that's what it is.
You nailed it. That was perfect, David. That's exactly it.
Yeah. So it's very, very compelling for the non-surfer. So I'm excited. I'm suddenly hyped about the Olympics. Let's go.
Yeah, me too. And again, funny that here we go, Mother Nature. We were just hoping that there's solid swell, and it's been a good southern hemisphere. I mean, that part, the southern hemisphere, both the Southern Ocean and moving into the Indian Ocean, and of course the South Pacific. It's been providing. There's been a ton of swell. I mean, there's more swell on the way here in Southern California and through all those, Tahiti's getting swell,
Yeah.
so. In fact, I'm going to pull it up as we talk to see what's going on.
Well, we're a month out still, so
doesn't matter. This is about the time I start geeking on the swell forecast.
Well, while you're doing that, I will reference there's actually two events surf events starting in the next 2 days. Open window on June 22nd, the Rio Pro starts for the WSL event. But almost more exciting to me is the Stab High event in Japan. Everybody is en route right now to Japan for Stab High, which is taking place in a wave pool in Japan on June 22nd and June 23rd. If you are on the West Coast, like Scott and I are, this will air on Stab Premium at 5 p.m. over the next couple of nights, Friday night and Saturday night, 5 p.m. It's a 2-day event, invitational only, Stab High Japan. Scott, are you excited to watch a wave pool surf contest?
No, I'm really not. I'm not too excited about it, to be honest with you.
You know why you should be?
I'm not, I'm just not in, that's not what I do. It's not the kind of surfing that's super exciting to me. And it's just because I'm an old guy, I get off my lawn, I'm not here to bag on it. I think it's great. I think it's fun. You asked me if it's something that I'm excited about. And I'm not, I'll watch the highlight clip of some guy doing some crazy air or Aaron Brooks or whoever it is, there's going to be girls ripping too. And it's next level. I get it. It's performance. It's crazy. And what they're doing is incredible. I'm personally not engaged with it. I'd much rather watch a guy at 8 foot can-do left getting shacked out of his brain.
Yeah, me too. I'd rather watch an open ocean event or an ocean event, no matter what. But
not even an event, just content.
Totally. But I'm still excited about this, and I like that Stab's investing in it, and I like that it's a digestible format. Like I can tune in at Friday. I love that it's Friday night too, because guess what? We're going to be having dinner. We're going to be watching a movie. I'm going to have it on my phone over here. It's a third thing. It's a fifth screen in our house that'll be operating that night. Lauren and I both on our phones, the TV also going, in addition to us sitting on the sofa on our phones, Austin on his iPad, and then boom, the contest on as well.
Austin with his new haircut.
Yeah, you like that?
Yeah, that's cool.
Looks cute.
Yeah.
But here's my bold claim about what's going to happen at this event.
Yeah.
Okay. We've identified in the past through these Stab High events largely that the best airs are going to happen in the ocean in a given year, because what's required to do a bigger, better air is a bigger and better section. So there is no pool that currently exists that can provide the launch ramp that we've seen Matt Miola and Albie Layer find, right? And so if you want to get a double rotation, you just need a bigger section, basically. And when you saw Matt Miola win that Stab High event in Costa Rica, and he was hitting these overhead closeout barrels and just spinning into oblivion, it was like, holy cow, that's the future of airs, is bigger sections. Now, my point is, bold prediction for this event is that the best airs are going to come from the Groms division, because Albie Layer is too heavy for the wave pool. Like, no offense to Albie Layer specifically, but grown ass adults are too big for the wave pool. The wave pool, it's a waist high fluorinated section, so they can't create enough energy in the wave pool to launch a 180-pound male to do a double rotation or a 8 or 10 foot air. But when you watch those 10 and 11-year-old 80-pound kids,
Yeah.
They get launched into orbit off those waves. And it used to be that those Groms didn't have the technical savvy to actually do something that Albie Layer was doing. That's all changed. I've seen those kids now doing crazy rotations, crazy grabs, full flips, like full rote, double rote, like all of it. They've got it figured out. So my prediction is that the best airs in this event are no longer going to be in the pro division. They're going to be in the Bottle Rockets division. They're going to be in the Ladybirds division. Cruz de Nofa, Arthur Villar, that little Brazilian kid, Arthur Villar, who's like 12
Yeah.
years old, has done some
Yeah.
insane stuff.
Totally.
Patty Zhao, the Chinese girl, she's done some insane stuff. So that is my claim.
I think that's a great call. I don't think it's too much of a stretch if we just look at the history of even like the X Games, the skateboarding and stuff. It's all getting to these lightweight young kids that are doing crazy stuff. I'm sure you just saw there was some kid like, I don't know, 9 or 11 years old that did 3 900s in a row.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of guy you're talking about, David. This super lightweight, super technical, that's going to be able to do this. I'm not doubting that we're going to see next level, probably groundbreaking stuff in the pool. I'm just, I guess maybe I'm oversaturated or undersaturated, perhaps. Maybe I haven't watched it enough to get super excited about it. But
look, my first opening salvo of that dissertation was the best airs this year are still going to be done in the ocean. Like this won't be better than that, because again, the big section of the ocean is where the future is for aerial surfing. But as we learned from the El Salvador event and Yago Dora's performance, is that he worked on airs in a pool and refined them and really got them dialed so that when that section provided itself in El Salvador, he greased the landing,
Yeah.
So that's what they're doing in these pools, is really working on the rotations and the grabs and getting it all dialed in.
Yeah. And I'm sure there'll be an edit, like a boiled down thing that'll be fun to check out, and it will be mind blowing.
Yeah. I mean, no question about it. You'll see all the clips on Instagram after the fact.
By the way, it's 8 to 10 feet at Chopu this morning. The sun's coming up, and there's plenty of swell in the water, but things slow down moving towards the first week of July, which could be good. That's kind of what you want. You kind of want it to slow down before the big second round pop happens.
Yeah. Well, that
other events. You were going to mention another event.
Yeah, the Oi Rio Pro also starts. The opening window for it starts on June 22nd. Not our most exciting event, but are you still in Survival League? Did you get booted this last event?
I thought I was.
Right.
Was. Then I got a letter that said I wasn't. So
yeah, you had to make the quarters this year, or this back half.
I had a pretty good run, but I'm out. I had Baron Mamiya, and he didn't get me there.
Well, if you were in Survival, do you have picks for Rio?
I mean, the obvious one would be, I guess Italo. I don't know.
Italo was my pick on my spreadsheet going into this, and then Kanoa was my backup if I didn't have access to Italo anymore. Kanoa just as a workhorse that I could always substitute in at any event and feel like he will make the quarterfinals. But Italo would be the safer bet. You know what? Depending on where they run, if they run at Sakurama, Cole Houshman's one out there. Cole could be
he's a
sneaky
kid,
pick,
though, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's one out there in the QS or the CS or whatever it was. So he could be a sneaky pick too. But whatever. Are you excited about Rio? Will you be watching?
I'm not too excited about Rio, but I have been in the past. They've had some exciting events there.
Yeah, totally.
That right that comes off of that rock jetty is actually a pretty fun looking wave, and it's a very contestable wave. It offers a tube and big banking sections, and so
when that tube's pumping,
which one is that Sakurama, that wave?
No, the Sakurama is the kind of bigger, mushier left. But that right, I don't know what they call that wave.
That's the wave that's kind of semi fun. Yeah,
that wave looks insane. When they've had big barreling days out there, I remember Wade Carmichael making the final against Felipe Toledo there like 6 years ago or something. That was super exciting.
Here's my question to you. Right now, Jordy Smith's number 5, and he's in the finals. But of course, there's quite a few guys nipping at his heels. Does Jordy Smith keep his spot after Rio?
That is the ultimate question. Jordy has, I believe he's won Rio before. He's done well there, but he is such a gamble there. I would be apprehensive to put money on him maintaining his spot. But if Jordy doesn't pull it together, if Jordy doesn't maintain a top 5 position this year, I think this is his last chance.
Yeah, this feels like he had a great run this year, and he's been surfing incredible. He seems rejuvenated, almost like there were no eyeballs on him early, and he was just surfing free and surfing powerfully. And so,
That's
say
the key. Just
there's
maintain
some
that.
guys, Gabe, Elo, and Yago nipping at his feet. Not to mention Jake and Crosby, Colapinto. There's a lot of guys that could move into the position here. Rio
I mean,
Wada could make a run
if one of those
in
guys,
Rio.
if one of those
Rio and
guys,
Rio, baby. Rio and Rio.
Yago and Gabe could win this event, which would presumably bump Jordy out of that 5th spot, depending on how Jordy finishes. So he's in a vulnerable spot. He wants to shore that up, make a semifinal here. It's a lot of pressure on Jords.
Well, I sense that John Florence is going to have enough points to be the Surfer of the Year, a new title that you and I have created. Surfer of the Year, the guy with the most points, regardless of what happens on the finals day.
Yeah,
He gets his own special award and check. Probably a new Lexus would be nice.
he earned it.
Yeah.
I want to take a moment to read a PSA from Surfrider Foundation, our partners at Surfrider Foundation. July 5th, Scott, is the dirtiest beach day of the year.
Wow.
I mean, that's
Dirty.
a pretty incredible thing to say, but it's true. The day after 4th of July, I've mentioned this. I remember mentioning this to you like 8 years ago
Yeah.
of like, waves are good in Huntington, 4th of July weekend. I show up on Monday to surf and just being aghast at how filthy the same parking spot area or whatever that I park in year round. And then showing up on July 5th and just being like, what happened here? Like a tornado blew through and just dropped McDonald's wrappers and beer cans and used condoms and everything like right at my feet for as
Whoa.
far as the eye could see. And so Huntington is kind of the pinnacle, tip of the spear in terms of horrific human behavior and also pollution.
Yeah.
But Surfrider has an initiative to alert the public that July 5th is the dirtiest day of the year across the United States. And so there's ways for you to get involved. They do a volunteer. I think last year, 2023, there was 30 different cleanups hosted around the country. 10,000 pounds of trash were removed and sorted. Over 1,300 volunteers showed up. This saves the county literally millions of dollars that they don't have to spend with their own crews cleaning up after the fireworks have fizzled and the Independence Day celebrations have ended. So if you would like to be a part of your local beach cleanup, go to surfrider.org and look for a volunteer site near you and help with those efforts on July 5th. I think it'd be a great family thing to do, even like, hey, we all celebrate on the 4th of July. It's great, but we have a responsibility and an obligation to our ocean. This isn't just, a pointless thing to do or just a general good thing to do. All of this trash, a huge percentage of it will end up in the ocean and compromise the health of the ocean for us surfers and the health of the ocean for humanity as a whole. So,
Well, that's well stated, well put, and a great PSA. Volunteer on July 5th.
surfrider.org.
Yeah.
Well, Scott,
yeah,
I've got a Duke for you.
please.
You mentioned Shane Dorian. I think that's a great one. My Duke this week is Mick Fanning. Mick Fanning just hosted a charity golf event. He does this once a year. The proceeds that they raise are to go towards the flood relief efforts in Australia. And this charity golf event this past weekend brought in $674,000. $674,000. So
Wow.
almost $750,000 brought in for this event. So Mick Fanning is my Duke. You can go to at Mick Fanning _ charity golf day if you want to follow this event, but he's done it over the years and kind of sets a new record every time that he does it. But I just thought that was a huge number. He's brought in $1.8 million over the course of 3 years. And Mick Fanning has become my Duke in retirement.
All right. Well, that's a great Duke. And another older surfer that you can count on if you're a marketing director. Mick Fanning, that guy's a professional.
He's an incredible ambassador.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we've got a long list of great surfing ambassadors, starting with Duke Kahanamoku. Sean Thompson was a phenomenal ambassador in his day. Kelly Slater's been a great ambassador over the years. But
that's
Mick
interesting
Fanning,
that Duke is your first ambassador. I mean, it's an obvious one. I'm not putting shade on what you're saying. I'm just wondering, were there ambassadors before Duke?
Surfing ambassadors?
Yeah.
I can't think of any.
Maybe George Freeth?
Maybe.
Maybe the 3 Hawaiian princes that went to Santa Cruz in, I want to say, the late 1800s, early 1900s.
I mean, but I'm using the term ambassador. I'm talking about somebody who then had a very public facing persona that was representing surfing to the world.
Yeah, I'm just saying, look, in 1897 or 1904 or whatever, 3 princes show up in Santa Cruz with surfboards, princes from Hawaii. Those are ambassadors. They just didn't have the bandwidth, the social media bandwidth that we have nowadays.
I mean, were they ambassadors though? Were they, you know,
you know what? More will be revealed. Let's revisit this. Let's do some research.
Yeah. I mean, Duke certainly
no
was,
doubt
though.
Duke's like, everyone would say Duke would be the first one, but I'm thinking there might have been some other ones.
Mick, though, is just so dignified.
Yes.
And he's just doing the thing year in and year out. You know what I mean? Like, he is a public facing figure who's invested in charities in a meaningful way, financially, and just leveraging his profile and just out there doing the work year in and year out in retirement, still surfing at an incredible level. So Mick Fanning, my Duke Kahanamoku of the week.
All right. Good stuff.
Do you have a must-see? I don't even prepare. I hate to admit, I did not prepare a must-see moment presented by Trees Wax.
So the must-see moment I watched today was on Stab, and it's called The Children of Chopu, and it's basically kind of like, hey man, the Olympics are happening and we'll see, but it could be a really bad thing for Chopu. It just depends on how the Olympic Committee deals with this small little village.
How would it be a bad thing for Chopu? Just
yeah, like, I think it's a bad thing for Chopu if that little village turns into Orange County.
Gotcha.
Like, if somebody comes in there and just buys land and goes McMansion on the place, and it loses its sort of quaintness, and I think that would be a bummer.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, direct everybody's attention to Stab High as my must-see moment for this week. That has not aired yet, but I changed my mind at the last minute. Tosh Tudor is becoming my new favorite surfer to watch, and he just dropped a new edit on YouTube called Tube Therapy.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this to Scott Hewlett in the podcast that I published this week. Tosh is about to he's about to ride a rocket ship to superstardom, I think. His surfing is very, very comfortable, natural, but he's riding really traditional equipment. I think our public perception is primed with Torrin Martin and Michael February and a couple of other surfers that have come in the last few years. And Tosh is going to ride the wave of us all being primed to want to watch like traditional style surfboards, comfortable, relatable surfing. But his ability level is he's so deft at tube riding, and that's what he's looking for. And he just like, he gets in early on these single fins or whatever he's riding, and he's surfing Greenbush, he's surfing Pipeline, he's surfing like these real Kandui, he's surfing these really kind of Desert Point.
Yeah,
He's surfing these scary waves, and looking so comfortable and natural in them, and then getting crazy tube rides. So tube therapy on YouTube is my must-see moment, presented by Treeswax, treeswax.com.
Well, that's a good one. I'm definitely going to watch that one. I'm a huge fan of Tosh's surfing, and Tosh as a human, good guy. All right. Well, good stuff. Well, look, David, we've said a lot. We've done a lot. We've said a lot. A lot's been discussed. Until next time, adios and aloha.
All right, Mr. Bass, I mentioned to you last week, Driftline. Driftline.co is now using Yamamoto rubber.
Oh my God. And can you imagine that the drifties got better, and they did? A softer, more gentler inner lining, a 0.5 millimeter of Yamamoto buttery neoprene, the liner inside of the drifties short.
Well, look, we've said the word Yamamoto 100 times in the last year on this podcast. I never knew I know it's better neoprene, and I've said it's made out of limestone. I just had a big question mark in my head for how do you make limestone, something that's hard and a rock, into the buttery neoprene that we are feeling around our most private and important areas. And it turns out Driftline actually just posted an article yesterday on their blog about the process of making Yamamoto neoprene. And so I would encourage you to go to their blog and check it out, but I'll give you a quick rundown right now. There's different qualities of limestone. So first of all, you start off with high quality limestone. It gets heated to create calcium oxide, and then is combined with other natural ingredient, kind of turns it into a dough, essentially. The mixture undergoes polymerization, transforming it into chloroprene rubber chips. Those rubber chips are then formed and cured and shaped, and the process creates a closed cell structure in the neoprene, which gives it lightweight, buoyancy, and insulating properties. It is then laminated, is what they call it, laminated into a fabric. So ensuring that the neoprene can handle the demands of the surf environment. So that's an abbreviated version, but you can go to their blog and learn more about the process of making Yamamoto rubber from natural ingredients. That's the point, is limestone instead of petroleum.
Cool. Oh, good stuff. Look, driftline.co. Check them out.
Promo code SPIT will save you 15% on your pair of drifties. And then, of course, it's realwatersports.com. They have a used gear sale going on right now, up to 70% off used gear on Real Water Sports.
I'm going there because I've got some used foil gear mania going on. I need to get some stuff.
That's the thing. Even the used stuff, the foil gear, is going to be better and way cheaper than what you'd buy for yourself brand new. This is an opportunity to take advantage. I know last year somebody said they got a Meyerhofer slip-in that they've been looking for years. They found a used version for like $450 or something. So you can find smoking deals on stuff there. So realwatersports.com.
Very cool. All right. Well, look, Real Water Sports. Why wouldn't you?
All right. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Okay.